Welcome to Connection Complete. I'm your host, Julia Barker. I'm here with my co-hosts,
Mary Beth Patricus, Mama Bear Productions.
Beth Notarius Inc.
We want to thank the Brighton Chamber of Commerce for having us in their conference room here at 218 East Grand River in Brighton. We're here today with Francine Zysk. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, thank you. Francine Zysk of Project Opiate. We're continuing our discussion on the opioid epidemic, and I'm so happy to have you here today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's start off with the history of Project Opiate and what it is exactly that you're doing for the community.
Project Opiate was founded 8 years ago. However, 10 years ago, working at the 53rd District Court, working in the probation department, we saw an influx of probationers that were coming in under the influence of prescription drugs at the time. Traditionally, 20 years ago, you would see occasionally someone come in with a prescription for an opiate or a benzodiazepine, and we saw the influx of that. With that, we saw the increase of retail frauds, breaking and entering, and the crimes were getting different and the population was getting different. And what I mean with the population is the drugs of opiates. So in the probation department, we started asking a lot of questions, specifically, what are you using? We increased the drug testing. We educated ourselves about drug testing. What is it when you test for an opiate? And we saw an influx of morphine positives. So when you ingest heroin, it is metabolized as morphine. That's what you test positive for in the body. So we asked a lot of questions. I have found in the criminal justice system, the opiate population is free to talk as long as you develop a bond and a trust with that. Mm-hmm. So with that discussion, the former jail administrator, Tom Cremani, I went to him and we talked about the issues that we saw in the community and went into the Livingston County Jail, interviewed 300 plus inmates, and with that found two common denominators with the questions we asked. The average age of first use of a prescription drug without a prescription was about 14, and they were using in the school as their first use. As their first use is they would be in the classroom, hear their friends talking, and instead of experimenting with marijuana, their friends would bring a prescription from the medicine cabinet from their homes or someone else's home of unused prescriptions, commonly a benzodiazepine Xanax or hydrocodone, Vicodin, or Oxycontin. And that was their first experiment with opiate. With those two factors, they were also predominantly females that we were getting those young numbers with. So with those statistics, we met with all the stakeholders in the community and the criminal justice system. We brought together to have a meeting and said, here is our findings. What can we do? We have to do something because the ages are getting younger and we're going to have an epidemic on our hands. And we developed a program that we were taught to high school students to start with the high schools. We did one junior high, which should be younger and younger. However, dealing with the school systems, we developed a program that we do a presentation to high school students, and we bring inmates from the county jail to share their story. That has been the most impactful. With that, we ask questions because the students are able to trust us. What's the #1 used drug in this school? And every school in this district has a different drug of choice.
Really?
Yes, yes. So
you're surveying of the students because you've garnered their trust.
Yes.
They're opening up, and now you've gotten data.
Yes.
School by school as to what that drug of choice is.
Yes. So the common thing that I say at the end of class is in the morning sessions I say, and I said this to every superintendent in the school many years ago, if I had $20 and I went on lunchtime, what drugs could I gather? As I said to the superintendents, give me $20 in 20 minutes and I can find drugs in every high school. They're here. We're not picking on one high school as opposed to on the south end of the county, as the north end of the county. It's universal. It doesn't choose, it's not choosy which school. However, there are drugs of choice that are favored in each high school. So doing that, there's a very good discussion. With that, we leave our information, and I think we've educated over 5,000 students in Livingston County. And every time that we attend, we get feedback and emails, please help. I have a friend, or I have a parent, can you please help me? And we connect them with the right resources in the community. So the second largest portion of Project Opiate at the time was to go to the Board of Commissioners for funding for opiate-specific treatment in the Livingston County Jail. Because along with our statistics when we interviewed the inmates was the portion of when I end up in jail, what do I do? Because I need to change behavior before I get out. Because we all understand that commonly when people get out, that's the highest rate of death. Because when they overdose and use the same amount, they will die. So is to do an education portion. So we have a treatment program inside Livingston County Jail that's been funded for 8 years. That's exclusive for females and exclusive for males. Our female instructor does a lot of grief and trauma work as well in these groups, and is doing a aftercare program on the way out. So we've been very successful with hundreds of female and male inmates doing that.
So I have a question for you. When you go into the high schools, is it mandatory by the high school that all of the students attend various sessions, or how does that work?
So I have to give a very applaud the Pinckney schools. They made it mandatory when we first went in to all their incoming freshmen to have been educated for the 2-year period down there. And now that they have acknowledged the issues that they have and they do not want to carry the stigma only for that high school, they do a lot of education in there. So some school districts do make it mandatory. Other high schools that we do, Brighton High School does it through their social science program, so it's exclusive for those classes at that time. So it just depends on school district to school district.
So would you go in and do like a general assembly for the students to attend your presentation, or I guess I'm still not real clear on
So
that.
it depends on the school.
Okay.
Some are per classroom. Some that we have done combined classrooms, so there could be 60 to 70 students, and we do that 7 times a day. So we do it through all the students depending. What's interesting is once you go in the classroom and they see the inmates coming and they start to hear after their first or second hour, they ask their teacher, can I go? They're hungry. They're hungry to learn. They're hungry to hear. And they're really hungry to discuss someone who's not going to make a judgment.
Yeah.
It's one thing that we do is let's reduce that stigma. That is a big portion of what we need to do in the community is we need to reduce the stigma for parents to talk about it. And we need to reduce the stigma for kids because this is a reality. This is the reality of growing up. When we first went and did, in 2009, our first education in a high school, we asked the question, does anybody know anyone who died from a drug overdose? Specifically an opiate overdose. You had a couple hands. Now, there probably isn't one hand that doesn't go up. And that's from teachers to parents to students, because along with going into the schools, we do community events. One of the first community events that we did was in Brighton at the large auditorium there. It's not the Brighton High School, but
Center
Performing
for,
Arts, yes.
Yeah.
And we were worried that no one would show up. However, I believe if 2 people show up, you've educated 2 people in making a difference, because those 2 people will tell 2 people and they tell 2 people. So it doesn't matter on the numbers that you get. I think that we've done 28 or 29 community events. We have educated over 700 criminal justice professionals. In 2011, we had national speakers come in and do a large event on the east side, 300 plus 2 times. So we still do those education anytime. And the main goal is we don't make judgments, we talk about the reality of what goes on to reduce stigma. Because to earn that trust, you really have to just talk about what the reality is going on without any judgments. And parents need a place to go. One of the key things when we started this was parents wanted to know if their children were using drugs, and they felt that they didn't want to take them to a drug testing facility to do that. So the sheriff, the prior Sheriff Doesnt, and I talked about providing drug test kits for every police department in Livingston County, and he was able to do that with some forfeiture money. And so now that the police departments have been doing it for several years, they use their own money to do that. So you can go to any police department in Livingston County and get a drug test kit with no questions asked, no questions about what the positive or negative is. It's just another tool for parents to know what's going on in their house. It's another way for parents to say, I love you, I want to know what's going on, before they're involved in the system.
Open up those communication lines.
Yeah. And sometimes we know that when someone's struggling, that if they have an addiction, that they're not going to be truthful. So again, not judging, but just to know what is really going on.
I can attest to 14-year-old first use in school. I mean, I saw this. I lost a friend to heroin overdose, and my own parents struggled with heroin issues stemming from a car accident, opioid prescription, leading into a cheaper way of, dealing with your need for that substance. And I mean, I've seen it, firsthand, and then when I look at the numbers and I see this is surpassing car accidents, gun violence. We have so many people standing up for, gun advocacy, especially in times like, what's been going on recently. And it's just like, well, look around you. We have something that's going on every day right here under our noses. Athletes, being prescribed, and being injured in high school sports. It's just so important to talk about how this is happening right under our noses. And I really would like to ask if you can elaborate at all on the issue of it being substance use disorder being a disease and not a decision, because I think parents are scared. How did I end up with this bad kid? How, what's really the connection between, the brain and these opioids, and how does this just happen to anyone who was raised in a good home? How does this happen?
Well, addiction doesn't discriminate.
Yeah.
So you can I think as a society we want to blame. It's more convenient to blame anyone. And you can't blame yourself. We all have to take ownership in this. So it's a systemic problem. So if you start at the beginning and you say, if someone is taking opiates for a pain injury, and I don't want to minimize, there are people who need pain medication. However, you don't need a medical degree to understand opiates have a reverse effect after 14 days in the brain. So after 14 days, my brain is going to simulate pain irregardless if I have it or not. So if I have an injury and I'm prescribed an opiate and I start to take that, and the doctor says on the bottle, take 2 pills as needed every 3 to 4 hours, my brain, after a period of time, is going to tell my body after that 3 to 4 hours, and is going to simulate that pain in my body, even if I still have the pain in my body. Now, we all understand there are some people who are in severe pain that need that. I'm not talking about that population, because the number of prescriptions that are prescribed doesn't include that entire population. So and that's why there's so many legislation bills being passed and produced as having 5- and 7-day prescriptions that you have to go back and see a doctor. Because what happens too many times is we're given 90 to 120 pills in a bottle, because that's what the insurance provides, without any follow-up care. I think if you look at statistically, and I don't have the exact numbers, the number of prescriptions that are prescribed for first dose opiates of the most massive amounts is on the first visit. That's why it's so important to legislate for return visits either for 5 or 7 or even 10-day prescriptions, that we don't have these open-ended 120 pills that are given all the time. So with that being said, what happens is if I'm given a prescription of this large amount, and we know medically that my body is going to simulate the pain after 14 days, why am I not returning a visit? I mean, you have a lot of things that are going on. And even as a parent who loves their child, and if you don't understand all of that, and you keep giving the prescription because you don't want your child in pain, what's going to develop after 30 days? Your pills are gone and your prescription. And the next month we get that prescribed and you're without prescriptions after 17 days. So after 17 days I'm in pain because now I've built up a tolerance, an addiction, and I'm in pain. Because when my brain starts to withdraw from those pills, it's going to simulate pain that I feel like I'm dying. Almost worse than some of the injuries that first happened. So with that, and then our prescriptions are gone after 17 days, and we can't get it because our insurance won't give it till after 30 days. Then we might go to a different doctor who doesn't know me, and then I might pay cash for that because I need it instead of using my prescriptions. And I start to learn very quickly where I need to go that I can get cheaper prescriptions at. And I might even go to several doctors because I might be using such a mass amount. Before they reformulated OxyContin, it was people who are deep in addiction, if they do not use heroin, can use about 20 to 40 pills a day, just depending what that is. That's expensive. So you have to do a lot of doctor shopping to do that. So if I look and say that I do that over a period of 6, 7, 8 months, and the option to use an illegal substance is heroin or something else is so cheap compared to this mass amount of pills, of course I'm going to take the easier route. But my disease, right, because now I have a disease, it's in my brain chemically as I need this drug to survive. So with that disease, I begun developing that criminal activity to steal to support my habit. Or if I'm a female, I may have sex to support my habit. That's just the reality to live. They get up in the morning and they think of every which way to get the drug so they're not sick. Not to get high anymore, just so they're not sick. Because we've built up that tolerance in our body. We've built up that addiction that our body is going to simulate that pain over and over and
that
over.
starts, basically, that whole cycle starts after 14 days.
Yes, I think the science says typically it's 14 days that your body would be, so give or take even after a month period of time on that. And if we look at the average amount of prescribing that is done, we're prescribed more pills in the United States, specifically in Michigan, than there are more people.
Specifically in Michigan?
Yeah, yes.
Well, the thing is too is that typically after 21 days, you make a decision to change something in your body, right? It takes 3 weeks to make that change, from what I've learned. So if doctors are prescribing 17 days, it's very close, a 17-day supply. So now your brain says, I need this.
Yep.
Not you need it because of the addiction, not because of pain that you're encountering. So what I think, and then, like you said, everybody's different, and I'm not here to treat or diagnose or judge on any of this, but it's in our hands too to say, you know what, I only want to do this for X amount of time. Do not prescribe me any more than that. We have to stand up to these doctors and say, I don't want you to do that. I don't care if the insurance covers it. Because we have to put our health in our hands. That's where it begins.
So did the doctors not understand this?
Well, doctors do understand. Just to caveat what you said, we have to get out of the mindset that we're not taking it just because the doctor said, okay? So if your child has I have a child who was very ill and carries a sickness her entire life. You have to educate yourself to understand, I'm not going to accept that, right? If this is bad, I remember a period of time they had said you have to go have her liver checked every 60 days. No, we're not going to do that. With pain, it's different though, because now it's the 6th vital sign, right? We don't want to experience any pain. So I don't say that coldly, but you have to really look at the larger population. When the United States has 35,000 people that died from addiction last year, okay, from overdose, that means that started with prescriptions. We all know that the #1 abused drug comes from a medicine cabinet, that we really need to focus in on why are we taking that, right? And if it is our child, we have to say, how long do we do that? Is there an alternative medicine, right? If you have high blood pressure, the first question you should ask, do I really need it? Can it be temporary? And what are my other things? Education and diet, right? As a society, we don't teach that, right? We need to ask those questions because we love our children. Not because we don't, but because we do. We don't want to get in the habit of medicating our children if they're hurt. Only if it's necessary, only if it's temporary. And when that comes about, we shouldn't have a stigma to say, I think my child's abusing, or I think my child's using heroin.
Well, so with Project Opiate, you are going and educating within the high schools.
Yes.
Is there parental education that you're providing?
Yes, so we do community events, like I had stated. Contact with parents. We use parents as speakers in everything that we engage in because they've lived it, right? I can't tell a parent what that pain is when they lived it. The worst thing that I think, and I said this 10 years ago to a colleague, we never want to be that person telling that story as that parent. They lived it. They're the best education. And that's where I will ask, how do we reduce stigma? How do we reduce that before it's too late? There's a lot of great grassroots operations that are happening. However, we do a lot of education with parents to say, okay, you need to educate, we need to communicate, okay? I know that a lot of people don't do it. I think the first place you need to have this discussions at the dinner table. Irregardless if it's one parent, because the other one's working, whether it's how many children are there, is to sit down at the kitchen table, no phones, no electronics, and let's talk. Let's talk about conversations, because we all talk about to our children about sexual abuse and gun violence, okay? The reality of a gun being brought to school isn't as real as my child being said, hey, why don't you take this to feel better? Because that's where we're at today. So we spend all our time, and I'm not minimizing bullying, okay? We spend a lot of efforts to do that. And there are tragic situations that happen in bullying. However, the #1 abused drugs on the average age of a child, 13 to 14, as a prescription drug without a prescription. Surpasses marijuana, surpasses alcohol, which alcohol is available in most of our homes and most everywhere, okay? That's the reality. I don't think the reality, guns are being brought to school every single day. And we need to worry about gun violence, but it's not something we need to focus on. We need to focus on what is the reality of happening is killing our children. I think all of us here have been affected, as you said, by an opiate or drug overdose. Someone's died, someone's been affected. And that's the reality. We need to sit down and have these tabletop conversations on a daily basis. You know, you go into the high schools and you say to kids, so who can I buy marijuana from? They tell you. That's what your conversation should be at home, whether you're a single family home or not. And it's to know how to have those conversations very easily. Just ask the questions.
Yeah, I think maybe parents don't want to hear the answer, that they're afraid. Right. So sometimes we just have to say, you have to get over that.
Right.
And know what your kids are doing and who they're keeping company with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can't rely on the teachers to know that. We want the teachers to be educated as well, because they do see them a good portion of the day. They see the kids in the halls.
Right.
Right? But it's our responsibility as parents, because all said and done, when they leave high school or go on with their lives, we're still going to be there.
Well, I think we need to do that because we love them.
Right.
We need to drug test our kids if we think something's wrong because we love them,
Mm-hmm.
not because we doubt them.
Mm-hmm.
There is controversy. I don't want to invade my child's privacy. You don't have any privacy when you're in my home because I love you.
Right.
Not because I don't trust you, because I love you. Because I love you so much that I need to know if there's a problem, you know? And I use this analogy sometimes with parents. If your child, you're baking cookies in the kitchen because you're that mom, right? And your 8th grader comes home and gets off the bus and sits at the kitchen table and rolls up his sleeve and brings out and syringes back a needle. How long are you going to tolerate that? You're not, right? But why would you tolerate your child going up into their bedroom every night, eating dinner up there or not eating? Why would you not walk or go into your child's car and look to see what's there, if there's any bottles? Why would you not ask questions if all your spoons are gone in your house and all the tinfoil is gone in your house, or if you're missing a piece of jewelry? Or it doesn't mean that they're horrible kids and you raise bad kids. It means they're conversations you need to have. I hear time and time again, yeah, all our spoons are gone, all the tinfoil's gone. They go up with their bedroom to your friends and close the door for hours. I'm sorry, let's go back to that analogy of your child rolling up their sleeve, putting a needle in their arm. If you're not going to tolerate that, don't tolerate that. There's nothing wrong with going into your child's bedroom and knocking the door and sitting on the edge of the bed and saying, hey, how you doing? Looking in their eyes to know what they're doing. That's because you love them. There's no judgment there. That's because you love them to know what's going on. And then, if there is, having places to go. Having other parents to talk to, say, we're not alone. What do we do?
Maybe after the break, that'd be a good place to start.
Yeah, thank you. We are going to take a short break here. I love where this conversation has been going. So when we get back from our sponsors, we'll continue our conversation here with Francine Zysk of Project Opiate. We're back with Francine Zysk of Project Opiate, and I said it right that time.
You did.
Sorry, I took us out and I said Zysk. Okay, to get back to, kind of wrap up what we were talking about so much with, children, and that's really where a lot of this is starting and where a lot of the problem is today. How can we, including our viewers, help you get connected with the community to spread this message? Because we could just talk all day. I mean, there's really a lack of education that's going on in our community.
So one thing is we need to know what the community wants and the community who's affected. So that's number one. Number two, invite us to your schools during the day or at night to have conversation. If you don't want to be affiliated with a school, and if you have a small group, even if it's a small group of women that play bunco, that want to have this
They could be a book club.
It's a book club, exactly. Because we have Seeds of Terror is a great book that we can segment into to do a book club with it. And it talks about how the infiltration of the opium poppy fields with the Taliban into the United States. And it's such a political view, but it talks about so many different things. Sam Quinnis wrote a fabulous book called Dreamland about the Mexican cartel, but it talks about our stories in the United States about kids who have died.
So, just for clarity,
Yeah.
Francine, you're saying that if we organize just a small gathering of parents, I don't know, 10?
Yep.
You would come in and provide some education.
I would provide whatever you needed. We can do education, we can do tabletop discussions, we'll do scenarios, we'll do what to look for. I have a plethora of education materials, handouts. We will give drug test kits that you have for your parents. We can actually have someone come in and do Narcan training that we utilize for that. We partner up with Brian's Hope, Jeannie Richards, who had lost her son. We partner with them in to do Narcan training in the community. We just provided that October 31st.
Quickly, Narcan is, for our viewers who may
Yes.
not be aware, what's your take on Narcan?
Narcan is a tool
Mhm.
that we can use that reverses the opiate effects in the body. It is a tool that you use if you're overdosing. It does not mean, and I've said consistently, we do not condone drug use. We do not promote to increase your drug use because there's Narcan. However, Narcan is used as a tool in case you have someone or a loved one that you have in case there's an overdose. And it's beneficial even in your workplace to have in case there's someone, because you never know what someone's going through. And if law enforcement or EMS cannot get there soon enough, it's a tool that you have to prevent a death.
It could be a parental tool
Yes.
to prevent their child from dying.
Yes.
So you have a relationship with the Livingston County Sheriff's Department.
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you expand on that?
Yes. When I always have to say that they're my partner in this because from the beginning and inception, the former sheriff allowed these opiate groups to be in the jail. We were allowed to take inmates anytime we wanted during the day for schools or at night for community events to speak and to be partners. That's a partnership. That's not something that we do, and they allowed us to do that with no questions asked. Since then, we do a lot of events together. The current undersheriff, Jeff Warder, is part of our Project Opiate team. He speaks with us. We do community events with him, and is an essential part of that partnership. We come in different directions. They arrest people, we treat people. However, that partnership together is to educate how to look at things differently. And so with that integral part, we need that. We need that relationship. There was also a segment that we wrote a grant in conjunction with the Livingston County Sheriff's Office to provide kits when they go onto an overdose scene for family members that they can give them, say, this is what you can do. Here are the resources that you have, just to provide another tool in the toolkit.
So how can the public, individuals, contact and reach out to learn about Project Opiate and what kind of education and tools, treatment, help that you can provide?
So one of the easiest way with social media, Facebook, like us on Project Opiate Facebook. There's a picture of our team on the front page there, and of an event we just did October 31st. Like us on Project Opiate Facebook. They can contact me directly, fzysk, that would be FZYSK, at livegov.com. Or my work number is 517-540-7637. So with that, and you can just Google Project Opiate, Livingston County, Michigan, and read a lot of articles that we've done for the last 8 years of events. And if there's something that the community wants, no matter how small or large, we would love to hear it and provide it, because we're in a really good spot to hook you up with a lot of people that can do that and a lot of agencies to come together to be a partnership. Because essentially we have a message without judgment to reduce stigma, and it's about your children and what you want.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, so much information. Thank you for coming out. Project Opiate, you heard how to find them on Facebook. I really recommend that we all do that when we get home. I'm just, again, so thankful for this conversation. I think we could go on all day, so I'm just going to leave it at that and hope that we all continue our education here, because this is something that's really rocking our community. We've all got to get educated on this subject.
Can I leave with one
Yes,
thought?
please.
So Project Opiate, throughout the way, we have one quote that we like to always carry, that silence is acceptance, so never stay silent in this epidemic.
Thank you, Francine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Julia Barker. This has been Connection Complete. I'm here with my co-host.
Mary Beth Patricus, Mama Bear Productions.
Beth Notarius Inc.
We look forward to our next conversation, helping to connect the community with professionals in the health and wellness businesses, people who can help educate us and ultimately reduce stigma. Thank you so much for watching.